Hello YouTubers, welcome to You Fix It. Thanks for joining. Today we're going to be replacing a broken door handle on a 2005 Nissan Altima. I got this replacement door handle from Amazon for $22. Comes painted, ready to install. So this whole plate inside of the door panel has to be removed to get to the door handle or window regulator or window motor, anything on the inside of the door cavity. So when you take all the bolts loose, the window itself will drop down because the regulator and the motor assembly is going to come loose. So I put tape on the top across the upper frame to hold it in place, and I will need to get inside beyond the window to get to the outer door handle. Once on the inside of the door, if you can follow my screwdriver up into just behind the door handle, there is a clip that holds one of the linkage rods into place, and you have to pry off the end that locks the linkage rod onto or into that clip. This is what the clip looks like on the new door handle. The linkage rod is a 90-degree shape rod, and the 90-degree bend goes inside of the hole right here, and then this locks down onto the rod to clip it and hold it into place. There are 3 bolts that hold the outer door handle into the door. You've got one on the top here above the door lock cylinder, one at the 5 o'clock position below the door lock cylinder, and then one in the front here. The two, this one here and this one here, are rather easy to get to. This one here is very difficult to get to. Okay, I'm going to take the window out. So that's the front regulator mount bolt, and this is the back one. Taking that loose, and you just want to make sure that you've got the window supported when it comes loose so that it doesn't drop, break, crack, or anything else. And of course the regulator assembly is going to flop around, and window supported. Even with the window and the regulator out, it is still pretty tight area to get into. Now when putting the new handle in, you've got 2 lips on the new handle that have to be engaged to the inside of the door skin. One is right here, and one is down at the bottom right there. Using the long open-end 10mm wrench, and I took a screwdriver from the top side, and while pressing on the head of the bolt, and then I took the 10mm wrench, the open-end portion, while turning the bolt at the same time, enabled me to get it started. Okay, now I'm going to close the latch as if the door were shut. And right now the key is in the lock position. Pull on the handle and the latch does not release. Now we're going to unlock the door lock and then pull on the handle as if we were opening the door, and the latch released. So the operation is good. Okay, now we're reinstalling the window, and reinstalling it opposite of taking it out. The front, the glass goes into the door first. Get it into the front guide. Get the back in. to the door, grab it at the bottom to reinforce it. Get the back into the guide. Get the front into the front guide. Now we got the glass up in position and it's taped up to the upper frame. Okay, I've got the regulator set in the door in the position that it needs to be. So now I'm going to remove the tape from the upper frame and releasing the window to drop down in the door. Okay, I got the front regulator bolt started. Rear bolt started. You see how these, it's got this little nodule right here that lines up into that groove, both on the front and the rear. That's how you know you got it correct position. And tighten it down. The unfortunate thing about this design is that the regulator bolts to the shield that attaches to the front of the door here. So you don't know if you got everything exactly lined up or not. So you want to look at your old marks where the regulator was riding before, so that you hopefully get it lined up properly. So that's what it looks like when it's tightened down in the secure position. You also have this guide that goes right on the window glass, or the window glass sits in that guide. Same thing on the rear. This divot is right in the V shape here on the regulator, and the guide right there is, the window is inside of that guide. So make sure that that's in the proper position. Okay, and then all this is kind of free floating right now until you get this outer plate that's back on the door. Okay, now we want to do a quick test of the window operation, regulator operation, and everything before we put everything together. Make sure that the window is in the front and rear guides. Now it's not going to close all the way as properly because the regulator assembly is loose. You can tell the basic operation is correct, and we'll get everything else aligned properly once we get the outer plate put back on. Okay, we got the inner door plate right here ready to go back in position. However, before doing that, make sure that you are aware of your motor mounting bolt hole positions. Right there. You got one right here underneath the wiring harness, and make sure this harness doesn't get pinched or chafed when putting it back together as well. And then there's another one back here towards the rear. Also have your bolts ready to go. We're going to get the inner plate into position. And then you look for your motor mount holes. One there, and one there. You got to reach around the back side. get familiar with the positioning of where the holes are. Look through the holes on the plate to where you've got them lined up. Okay, we got one started. Okay, another one started, and you can see the third one there. Okay, and that one is started. So we got all three of those going. I've got the wiring harness through the door, or through the inner door skin with the grommet in place. This is the outer harness. Okay, now we have to get our regulators fully lined up. All the way to the upper position, the uppermost position. And I've got the regulator. If you look through the holes there, you can see the inner regulator threaded hole behind this hole here. If you can see it now. And then here's the lower mount hole. This is the front regulator mount hole, and this is the front lower regulator mount hole. Those ones lined up rather easy. This is the motor mount, and the bolts are loose still. So I've got everything just loose right now. Okay, that's the upper rear regulator mount. And it is threaded, it's started. This is the rear lower mount hole. Okay, I got the inner panel back on and all the bolts are tightened, and I have been testing the window operation throughout the tightening of the bolts to make sure that nothing causes a bind as I'm going along. I'd rather find out now than after I get the door panel and everything back together. So looks like everything's pretty smooth except for that piece of tape on the window still. So everything looks like it's a go. So we'll just get the door panel back on and have it ready to go. Okay, we got the door panel back on, and again I'm gonna test the operation of the window, make sure it's working well before I put the switches back on and everything. No noise, it's going up and down well. Of course it needs a good cleaning. And I want to check the mirror operation. Yep, that looks good. And door locks, they're working well. And speaker. Okay, speaker works good, and that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a note below, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button, please.